I'm Sarah Ford Neorr, a member of this congregation. It is good to be with you this morning. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching from home, it is good for all of us to be together. Our opening words this morning are adapted from the Karania Metta Sutta by John and Sarah Gibb Millspaugh. As we have been blessed, so we bless one another to be a blessing. Breathe in, breathe out, this breath we share with all that breathes. Feel the love of the universe flowing through this community, into you, and out into the universe again. Let the love of all the universe, your love, flow outward to its height, its depth, its broad extent. You are more than you know and more beloved than you know. Take up what power is yours to create safe haven, to make of earth a heaven. Give hope to those you encounter, that they may know safety from inner and outer harm. Be happy and at peace, healthy and strong, caring and joyful. Be the blessing you already are. That is enough. Blessed be, amen.
I pray you'll be our eyes and watch us where we go and help us to be wise in times when we don't know. Let this be our prayer as we go our way. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, give us place where we'll be safe. La luce che tu dai nel cuore resterà. Ricordaci che l'eterne stelle sei nella mia preghiera. Quanta felice. Lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, give us faith so we'll be safe. Sogniamo un mondo senza più violenza, un mondo di giustizia e di speranza, un giuro di la mano sul vicino, simbolo di pace, di fraternità. We ask that life be kind and watch us from above. We hope each soul will find another soul to love. Let this be our prayer. Just like every child needs to find a place, guide us with your
Thank you. Good morning. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. I invite you to stand in body and/or spirit for the lighting of our chalice. If you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me at this time. Please join me in reciting the words on the screen. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to build a Unitarian Universalist community that transforms lives and empowers people to serve the world. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. I invite you to remain standing in body and/or spirit for our first hymn this morning, number 83, Winds Be Still. John and Diane will lead us.
Be still. Storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm let all find tranquility. Birds fly high, lift our gaze towards distant view, help us to sense life's mystery. Fly high and far and lead us each to see how we blew through the winds of eternity. Light shine in, illuminate our inward view, help us to see with clarity. Shine bright and true so we may join our songs in new sounds that become full symphony.
Good morning again. I'm Wendy Gates Corbett, a member of this congregation. If you're visiting us for the first time this morning, either in person or online, I extend a special welcome to you. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive. We are liberally religious, and we actively serve the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own personal religious journey, you are welcome here. As Unitarian Universalists, we seek wisdom and inspiration from many sources, but we affirm our own individual experience and conscience as the best authority for our beliefs. We are also committed to making our world more compassionate and just, and we hope that you will join one of our many efforts to do so. If you are visiting us for the first time in person and you haven't already done so, I invite you to stop by our visitor stand after the service, which is immediately outside our sanctuary doors. If you are visiting us for the first time online, I invite you to fill out our visitor form at uufr.org/visitor form. If you do this, you'll start receiving our weekly e-newsletter. For those of you here in person, our social hour this morning will happen immediately after the service outside in our upper patio. For everybody online, feel free to join us for our online social hour immediately after the service. There are instructions on how to do this on our website. I now invite all of you to meet and greet each other. For everybody at home, please use the chat function on your screen. And I invite you to continue these conversations afterwards at our social hour. This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and sorrows of our community. Anyone is invited to email a joy or sorrow to joysandsorrows@uufr.org before 9 a.m. every Sunday. And also, everyone is invited to light a candle before the service, to place a card in the basket if you have a joy or sorrow that you would like acknowledged from the pulpit. Folks at home can also share a joy or sorrow by using the chat function on your screen. Wendy and I lit a candle this morning in loving memory of Jim Kilgrow. Jim, a longtime member of this congregation, died on Saturday, July 3rd, after a fall. Some of you here may not have known Jim, but he and his wife, Luann, were active members of this congregation for many years, and particularly before Luann's death several years ago. A service in memory and celebration of Jim's life will be held this Thursday, July 15th at 11 a.m., and a reception will follow. As we reflect on this sorrow and all the shared joys and sorrows of today, all the joys, sorrows, fears, and hopes of our own lives, let's be together now for a time of stillness and silence, opening ourselves to that spirit within us, between us, and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us towards a fuller experience of life. After the silence, we'll sing hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. But now let's be together in stillness and silence.
shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Much of what we do at UUFR is only possible because of the generous financial gifts so many of you provide. However, we designate one Sunday each month as a Justice Sunday, and all of the money collected during our offering is given to a local or national nonprofit organization. Today is our Justice Sunday. And our Justice Council has designated the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants as the recipient of our offering. Twee Dansick, volunteer coordinator of the North Carolina field office of that organization, is here to tell us a little more. Twee?
Good morning. Thank you for the honor of being here today to represent USCRI, the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. As Wendy introduced, my name is Twee Dansick. My family of 9 arrived as refugees in 1975 from Vietnam after the fall of Saigon. We were able to thrive in the U.S. because of kind and compassionate Americans, such as yourselves, to help us acclimate to our new country we now proudly call home. I joined the USCRI Volunteer Network several years ago and was soon asked to be the volunteer coordinator in a volunteer capacity. It has been rewarding and humbling to be able to help an organization whose mission is closely aligned with my life story. USCRI's mission is to protect the rights and address the needs of persons in forced or voluntary migration worldwide and support their transition to a dignified life. We provide welcome, opportunity, and hope to hundreds of individuals and families each year who are fleeing violence, persecution, and poverty from around the globe and choose to make North Carolina home. Since 2007, USCRI has provided assistance to over 7,000 clients to rebuild their lives here in North Carolina. They include refugees, special immigrant visa holders, asylum seekers, unaccompanied children, and survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. We were able to provide these much-needed services due to the generosity of time, labor, and monetary donations from many individuals, civic groups, corporations, churches such as the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, and other religious organizations. UUFR has completed 3 Welcome Home projects, whereby the congregants here donated time, labor, furniture, household goods, meals, and money to set up beautiful apartments to welcome our clients. On behalf of USCRI, I'd like to sincerely thank you for your commitment and compassion to help settle our clients. I also like to thank Amy Blackwell for her tireless efforts to collect diapers and baby items from the congregants over this past year. The collections went to many clients with newborn babies. As I mentioned, USCRI also provides other services to refugees and immigrants in Raleigh and in North Carolina. Through the donations during the pandemic, we were able to purchase laptops to provide to many clients who did not have access to computers for online learning. The donations also allowed us to give emergency assistance during the pandemic to over 400 individuals to cover basic living expenses such as rent and utilities. Other donations helped us provide pro bono legal services to unaccompanied minors and other clients in their asylum cases. Since 2018, 353 unaccompanied children received protective support and were released to their families here in North Carolina alone. Did you know that if an immigrant has legal representation, that their case will have a better chance to succeed in court by about 60%? USCRI can also greatly benefit from volunteers with various skills. We are in need of ESL instructors. Nancy? If you have ESL teaching experience, we currently have more than 40 clients, children and adults, who are eager to be matched with a teacher to learn English. We are also seeking tutors to gear up for the next school year. This past academic year, we had nearly 30 children matched with tutors in all subjects, ranging from social studies to physics to creative writing. Since the pandemic, we have seen a rise in the number of clients, unfortunately, who struggle with food insecurity. We are also seeking volunteers to pick up food at a local food pantry and deliver it to these clients. And if you work or own your own business, perhaps you can consider hiring our clients to give them a chance to provide for their families and to start a new life in the U.S. Studies have found that 90% of refugees and immigrants can reach financial self-sufficiency within 6 months of arrival. In closing, although you may not have personally helped me and my family 46 years ago, when we first arrived here in this great country, please know that what you do today will provide a firm foundation on which the newly arrived refugees and immigrants would build, learn, advance, thrive, and succeed in a short time, just like my family and I did. For that, I am forever grateful. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tui. Will the ushers please come forward to collect the offering? Whether you are at home or in the sanctuary, it's always possible, convenient, and easy using one of the methods on the screen. Please be generous. Thank you.
Alexandra, thank you. Our reading is from the Unitarian Universalist Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti. In reaching out through prayer to all that is, God, the universe, the vastness of time and space of which we are a part, I place myself in both a larger context and a larger relationship. I am part of all that is, distinct yet inseparable, held yet free. I invite every atom, every molecule, everything seen and everything unseen to bear witness and support me in my prayer. Learning to pray again. That appears to be the topic that we're tackling together this morning. Some of my earliest memories of prayer are of begging God to let the angel of death spare my stuffed animals. I was about 6, and I had been told the story of Passover, the Old Testament tale of how the angel of death killed the Egyptians' firstborn sons in Sunday school, because that's appropriate for first graders. In the biblical story, it's not just the children who are taken, but the firstborn baby animals too. Now, the adult Egyptians may have had it coming, but a massacre of babies and barn kittens, that was shocking to me, horrifying. And I was very concerned that if the angel of death came through DeWitt, Michigan, where we lived, it would snuff out the souls of all my beloved stuffed animals and dolls and figurines, the living souls of which I could see deep in their glass eyes. I had to stop that from happening, obviously. Unlike the ancient Israelites, I did not have any lamb's blood handy, so I had to find a different way to get the angel of death to skip my room. I gathered up a store of protective supplies, washcloths, towels, sheets, and if I felt a sense of foreboding in the evening, which you may be surmising was not terribly uncommon for an anxious child such as myself, I would individually drape each of my animals. The little figurines were best draped with a Kleenex to hide their eyes. And then I would climb under my own sweltering covers and pray fervently to God to tell the angel of death to pass over us. Apparently it worked, but it wasn't a very good experience. Wendy told us this morning, wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. Like some of you here and some of you at home, I've traveled many miles seeking escape from the religion of my youth. Sometimes I think of that journey in terms of a developmental life cycle. I had a childhood of unquestioning devotion, which by the time I was about 20 became a long, long spiritual adolescence of rebellion and liberation. Now in my late 40s, I think perhaps I've managed to become a late-stage adolescent, able to see and accept some of the religious blessings of my youth, even as I maintain a watchful, defensive crouch around actual live evangelicals. During most of those years, I assiduously avoided telling people I'm praying for you, even when culturally that would have been the easiest or the most appropriate thing to say. So many things implied there, I'm praying for you. I believe in God. I'm on good terms with him. He takes my calls. I didn't even like it when other people said they were praying for me. You talked to God about me? You didn't tell him where I am, did you? Now look, I will forever cherish that part of me that's a spiritual teenager, rolling her eyes and sneering at the absurdity of all religion. She saved me. But over time, and perhaps like some of you, I've longed to have access to my spiritual adulthood as well, to have the adult ability to embrace a spiritual identity of my own. The great Unitarian minister William Ellery Channing said, "I call that mind free, which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the infinite spirit, and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement." Imagine that. No longer living within imposed religious boundaries, no longer defined by our flight from them. If we had the freedom to seek spiritual enlargement, what would that even look like? For many years, I didn't pray because my flight from religious boundaries kept me from engaging with spirituality at all. I had on a bulletin board this little self-improvement chart. I found it in a magazine. It depicted 4 quadrants of personal health: physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. The idea being that a self-realized and balanced human being would attempt to fully inhabit each of those 4 quadrants. Well, physical well-being, I took that reasonably seriously. Emotional well-being, years of good therapy. Intellectual well-being, I went to law school, found mentally stimulating work. But spiritual well-being, I decided there wasn't much that couldn't be classified as emotional or intellectual instead. That 4th quadrant of spirituality struck me as somewhat redundant. The personal health equivalent of the letter C. You have the letter S, you have K. There's really nothing C has to cover. And yet, over time, I had spiritual yearnings, inklings. What do I mean by that? Like Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart famously said of pornography, "I can't define it, but I know it when I see it." So let me just give you some examples of the kinds of times I felt a stirring in my soul. Like when you read a good book and you inhabit a character so fully that their joy is your joy and their sorrow is your sorrow. Or when you see, really see, perhaps in the golden light of early evening, the true beauty of a familiar street with familiar trees raising their sheltering arms. Or when you hold a beloved someone in your arms, a lover, a child, someone dear, and know in that very moment how much you love them and how precious it is in this world of separation and death to be able to hold them. Here's one more, and you may have experienced it too. It was a Sunday in June of 2020. We were all 3 or 4 months into our new life of isolation, and I was in a room by myself watching church on a laptop screen. And into my quiet room, there came the sound of 26 living voices raised together to sing, "My life goes on in endless song." And the faces of our choir filled my screen, and I wept for joy. After that, I heard several choir members describe how hard they worked to make that video. It takes like 350 person hours. And I was like, well, to me, watching it, it was a radiant signature of the infinite spirit, so you guys need to keep doing that. One key thing that those experiences have in common is a sense of transcendence. As Unitarian Universalists, we have a long camaraderie with transcendentalists like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, who held that divinity pervades all nature, all humanity. And when we transcend the ordinary boundaries of the self to enter communion with a forest, with another person, or with a whole choir, we feel it. Transcendence goes beyond connection. It's oneness. Emerson wrote, "Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one." Moments of transcendence raise our eyes. They inspire us to wonder if, after all, a fundamental goodness might be at work in this universe. Help us to know, even if not to fully understand, that we play a part in that. Wanting to be connected to that goodness, to play my part in it, is what made me want to pray again. The UU Reverend Erica Hewitt writes that prayer is one word for the alignment of our full attention with our desire to connect with that which is larger than us. So, I decided to send my guarded spiritual teenager out for candy and cigarettes. She had to go on break because the spiritual adult in me wanted to reclaim prayer, reclaim it as communion with the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. But alas, wanting something doesn't make it so. As Reverend James described in his recent Alfie sermon, many of us see Tim in our prayers, a distant God, a sort of angry preacher, intermittently deigning to intervene in human affairs. In my mind, a God who's very male and very disappointed in my comportment. Long after I stopped believing in that God, I still saw him when I tried to pray. And I struggled to find traction in any other narrative. It seemed no other picture of the divine was sufficiently accessible or sufficiently vivid to compete with that angry preacher God so deeply imprinted on my imagination. Sometimes we need an assist from someone else's imagination. And one day I realized that it had been there all along. An image of the divine compelling enough to compete with angry preacher and familiar enough to feel like home. And I guarantee that you are familiar with this vision too. It's been in heavy rotation since it made its debut in our popular culture when I was 4 years old. I can't do the voice, so you see how long it takes you to place the words. Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you? And well, you should not. For my ally is the force, and a powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. You must feel the force around you, here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, yes, everywhere, even between the land and the ship. A universal energy that provides harmony and balance, essentially a Taoist credence, broadcast repeatedly in every town in America for the last 45 years. Thank you, George Lucas. God works in mysterious ways, no? At a time when my own spiritual imagination was hemmed in, gummed up, Star Wars gave me another way to think about the spirit within us, between us, and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us towards a fuller experience of life. There are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. That from the great Sufi poet Rumi. There are 1,000 ways to go home again. Okay, so let's review where we are. I decided I wanted to learn to pray again. I realized that Star Wars could help me see the nature of divinity differently. And I accomplished all of that in just 20 years. So let's get on to building a spiritual practice of prayer. If we long to repair the world, and as Unitarian Universalists we could do worse than to start by cultivating our sense of oneness with it. In the words of Thich Nhat Hanh, we are here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness. Cultivating a sense of connection changes how we move in the world, and that's the power of prayer. It's not about leading the universe toward a desired outcome. This is from the UU Reverend Eric Walker Wickstrom. It's about our willingness to be led toward greater consciousness, compassion, and connection. Now, as Unitarian Universalists, we have the luxury of drawing wisdom and inspiration from many sources. So in my own nascent efforts toward greater consciousness, compassion, and connection, I rely on two different forms of prayer. One is meditation in the Buddhist tradition. The other, the one I want to talk about a little bit more today, involves very freely riffing off Catholic tradition to converse with saints. When I want to pray for or about my kids, I pray to Mary, the mother of Jesus, placing myself in the company of mothers through the ages who have hoped, rejoiced, or been sick with worry for their children. When I want to pray for or about my husband, Steve, I pray to his grandfather, Ken Neorr, a man I never met, but whose last name I proudly carry around with me today. He was a factory man in Toledo, Ohio, a joiner of clubs and lodges, and such a jolly and loving pampa that now, 40 years after his death, Steve grieves him still. And for the past 2 years, when I have been most heartsick for our world, I have prayed to my dear friend and mentor, Cindy Whitmer, who died of breast cancer in 2019. I am close to her, and I believe she is close to the Great Spirit. So I feel sure that Cindy, in times of urgency, is the shortest distance between 2 points. Now, this is where you or I might get tripped up by asking, is this real? Am I actually talking to any of those people? Are their spirits helping me? Or is it simply helping me to reflect on their spirits? Questions like that have lost their urgency for me over the years. I believe there is a divine, a spiritual dimension, and that is literally about as far as I can get before my level of uncertainty skyrockets. I know not the workings of the unseen realm. And that not knowing was paralyzing to me for a long time. I really wanted to figure it out so I could start a spiritual practice. And then one day, a sympathetic or perhaps simply impatient angel took pity on me and whispered to me that I could start a spiritual practice now and figure it out later. Did an angel really whisper to me? See, stop it. That's not the point. I don't need to understand the mysteries of the cosmos right now. I need to find ways to connect my questioning, cantankerous little self to the force, to the oneness. So I pray to my husband's grandfather. I tell him all about the generous man his grandson became. And how could I not love Steve even more after a chat with Pampa? I pray to Mary. I tell her about my children. And she tells me about children who don't have enough to eat, who suffer violence, whose families risk everything to give them a better life. How could I not be more compassionate with her soft voice in my ear? And if you knew my friend Cindy Whitmer, then you already know that I become wiser and more gentle with myself and everybody else when I examine a problem in her presence. Real prayer, metaphoric conversations, perhaps that distinction is terribly important. Perhaps it's not. After all, no matter how we conceive of the divine in this life, don't you think every conception is bound to come up pretty short in the end? Gandhi said that the various religions are like different roads converging on the same point. We, all of us, are travelers who yearn to reach a distant city. And we can spend years waiting, wondering which way is the right way. But many paths lead to the great city. And the most important choice may just be the choice to start walking. So wherever you are on your journey, I look forward to seeing you out there on the road. So may it be. Amen.
Thank you. Please join us in singing number 168, One More Step, 168.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. Say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
Please be seated. As we end this time of worship together, may we do so with ever more love for one another, with ever more gratitude for this precious gift of life we share this very day, and with ever more hope for our own lives and the world we share. Amen.